Hello, Stampers. Welcome to Learning with Friends. I am Pat Fairless from Fairless Stamp and Flair, and I'm so glad you joined me today. I'm really excited about the technique I'm going to show you. It's called Embossed Mosaic or Embossing Mosaic, something like that. I'm not sure the official name. Um, I only discovered it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago as I'm hunting for ideas for these Learning with Friends videos. And I had never seen it before, but it didn't look too hard. So I thought, well, I can probably do that. I found a video from Sharon Armstrong, actually, from TX Stamp and Sharon. And she indicated that this is a super old technique. It's been around forever. So I guess it just goes to show you, even though I've been doing this for, I think, 17 years now, we can always learn something new. So I hope it's new to you. If not, maybe you'll learn some tips and tricks from what I've learned in practicing the last couple weeks. But let's put the camera down and just go ahead and get started. So let me first show you a card that's made with this, and I will show you the one that was my first attempt. This is the card that was my first try at this. I was actually pretty happy with how that turned out. I think it looks a little prettier in person than it might on camera. This is made with the Nature's Sweetness Designer Series paper. This Designer Series paper has been around quite a while. It actually I think was first introduced in a mini catalog, maybe this last year's spring mini, and then they carried it back into the annual catalog. So this is an annual catalog design, and it is two-sided, so it's a specialty paper, and you can see there's lots of foiling on here. I used bits and scraps from each of these designs, all 6 of them. There's 6. The other side of these are not foiled. So I just picked, actually I didn't pick and choose. I had lots of little scraps that I just cut up and used them all. And this card ended up being the result. The inside, I actually made another little strip for the inside because it turned out to be pretty easy to do and quick and easy. So I just cut a strip. And then I decided, well, I could just do this directly onto my envelope flap. So I also did it on the envelope flap for that card. Now we're not going to do all of that today, but I am going to show you how to do the technique. And I am going to use today the paper called Thoughtful Designs. This is in the current annual catalog as well. And it's these papers. Let me find a full strip. This one's all I have left of this. It's Petunia Pop and Misty Moonlight. And this is the one we're going to use today. But if I show you, there's like an old olive, mossy meadow. They're all ombre. And you can see, let me see if I can find one of the ones. Here's one that's pretty peacock and I'm not really sure. Soft sea foam for the party. Here's one Calypso Coral and pretty in pink, I think. You can see it on here. You can see the pink. But anyway, they're all ombres in various colors. There's one sheet of each in those. But we're going to use Thoughtful Designs. And like I said, we're going to use the one that includes Petunia Pop, which is an in color and one of my favorites, and Misty Moonlight, another one of my favorites. And these are the ombres. So the first thing we do is we just, if you have scraps, just use your scraps and start cutting them up. I just made some strips for scraps, and I am just gonna, there's no measuring, just, but you need your cutter, not your score blade. And we're just gonna cut these into pieces, kind of randomly shaped. Doesn't really, you want them all to be whatever. So we will just, some of them I like to make a little longer and skinnier, because as we mix and match, we're gonna, sometimes we'll need to take our paper snips and to make them fit if we don't have something that fits, but for the most part, we're just gonna take these and lay them randomly out on a piece of cardstock. So let's just get these cut up here. And I probably didn't need to cut all of these with you, but I didn't pre-cut them, so I don't even know how many you exactly need. I usually make more than I need. It just seemed to, it was nice because then I had leftover scraps to make my little decorative strip and do my envelope flap. I actually had enough left for those. So, all right, I got a couple more strips here. Let's get these cut up. And I just kind of kept twisting and turning until they were done. Like I said, if you get one that doesn't seem to fit anywhere, you can always just take your scissors and recut it, right? This is probably the slowest part of this process, is cutting this up. And as I'm doing this, I'm like, why didn't you do half of these beforehand so you guys don't have to sit and watch this? If you're not watching it live, you can fast forward through some of this, you know. You get the idea now. We're just cutting them up. Some of them are getting a little tiny. I'm going to add this other strip here just in case we need it. Almost done. We'll get there, I promise. Of course, the smaller the more you make the pieces, the more you're going to need. If you make them a little larger, you won't need this many, obviously. Let's give ourselves a little long, skinny one here. I found sometimes these little skinny ones seem to fill in the nooks and crannies the best. So we'll make a few. And when I cut my strips from the ombre paper, I took some from where it was mostly the misty moonlight and some where it was more the petunia pop, so that I would have a variety of color. And I haven't made this card before, so you're going to see right along with me how it turns out. I think the paper's beautiful and it should work out great. So we are going to do our best. And we'll be surprised together, either surprised or disappointed. Now I have an adhesive sheet and a piece of cardstock. A hint, I cut this 5 1/4 by 4 and this 5 1/4 by 4 because we're going to cover this on here. And that's how we're going to adhere the pieces. Make this a little larger than you think you want it ultimately, because you'll want to trim the edges just to get some nice clean edges. So let's peel these off. The other thing is sometimes these adhesive sheets, when you peel the backing off, it pulls up the adhesive. And you'll see what I mean once I get this on my basic white cardstock. We'll see some places where we're missing a little adhesive, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but I got a way to fix it. So that's a hint you'll want to pay attention to. So I'm just gonna line this up, and I'm gonna use my bone folder, oops, and just kind of give it a good press to make sure it's stuck well to my cardstock. And now we need to get the other side off, which is always the fun part. And I'm probably going to need my reading glasses for this. But we're going to give it a try because I don't think I brought them over here, which is unusual. I usually have them both. I want to get my head in the camera. We're just going to try to get an edge here. I mean, I am going to have to pull this here without. I should be able to do it on this edge. So cutting all the little pieces is probably the most time consuming, the most tedious is getting this backing off the second time. This layer that I'm pulling off right now. But there we go. Now, I'm going to pick this up, and we do want to be careful not to touch this much because we don't want to pull the adhesive off. But if I pull this up, I think you can see along here where some of the, there were 3 strips, adhesive was pulled loose along those strips. There's another spot up here in this edge. And what I found is if I just took my Stamp and Seal and I ran it over those spots and maybe along the edges, so wherever I was missing some adhesive, I could just lay that back down on top of it. And that really helped. So do I have one more thing I want to look for here? Okay. So now we're going to do, this is just covered with adhesive, and we're just going to start laying down pieces randomly on here. And again, this is larger. We can have them hang over. Doesn't matter because we know it's larger than we want. We're going to leave little gaps so it looks like mosaic. And here's a good spot where I need a littler, skinnier one maybe. And again, don't worry, just start putting these down randomly. I kind of like to work from one side up. Just seemed to work a little bit better for me. But do it however you want to cover up we're just going to cover this whole thing here, okay? And if you do have different colors, like I've used for this one, I've used all the same sheet of paper. You can do this like I did with the one with Nature's Sweetness. I had multiple patterns. You can do that. It's totally up to you what you want to do. But you don't have to worry about getting things evenly spaced. This is a no stress technique. It is kind of fun to pick out which piece you think might fit the best in your little pattern to minimize any necessary trimming. And I am trying to pick up a little bit. I'm trying to mix up where some are more in the Petunia Pop family. And so I get a little bit of variation. I'm kind of looking at that a little bit, not a lot. Oh goodness, I have a little corner in here now. It's going to just kind of drive me crazy, isn't it? Let me spread these out so I can see them. How about this one? That one fits pretty good. Okay. And we're just going to continue doing this until everything is covered up. It is certainly not difficult. It's kind of a little bit like putting a puzzle together to find where pieces fit. And you don't have to worry about these gaps being equal. That doesn't matter. You can't have pieces overlapping, of course. That would mess with the technique a little bit. You want gap around every piece. Where's one of those little skinny ones I cut that I can stick down in there? I know I cut one. Here we go. How about that one? That's why I like some skinny ones, because we can fill that in. And sometimes little tiny ones that got cut smaller than we wanted are good for the fill in those little edges on the gaps. There we go. Here's kind of a good square one. Let's put this down here. And I need another skinny one down in here. Is this fit in here? I think so. Close enough. Now I've got a pretty much small little piece in here. I'm probably going to, more than likely, I'm going to have to cut something for that, but we'll save that to the end and just see how that works out. Fill in those little pieces last. And I'm going to start. It is a bit like a puzzle, but it's kind of a fun puzzle. Do I have any more skinny ones down in that corner? Yeah, I can get down in there. I do. That'll work. Close enough. Now, see, I need another skinny one, which I might not have something skinny enough. But I can take one of these longer, larger pieces, and let's just cut a piece off and see if that fits down in there. A little wide. So we'll just trim it again, because you do, like I said, you want to gap all the way around, because we're going to cover that with embossing powder. There we go. And while I'm cutting, let's just go ahead and get a little one for down in here. See if that fits. Pretty close. We'll trim it off. And all right, I'm gonna angle it just a bit more, because it is, and I don't want to cut over my piece here, because I don't want these little pieces stuck on there where they'd be hard to get off, and I'll probably end up pulling adhesive off to do that. So let's try that one. That should work. Like I said, it's a bit of a puzzle. Just take your time and figure out how the pieces want to fit together. You can see I have plenty of them here. And now I need a little bit longer, skinny one again, don't I? That's this one. I'm looking for one that's got a little bit more pink in it. Just to break it up a bit. There we go. That works. There's a good square one there. Cover that spot. There's a skinny one I can hang on to. There we go. And maybe this will fit down in there. Trim this just a smidge like this. Not sure I like that, how that's turning out. I want a fatter one down in there. You're probably all seeing the pile and going, grab that one, grab that one. And I'm not seeing it. Well, let me try this. Is it going to fit down in there? I think so. There we go. Now I have to deal with those again, don't I? But that's okay. Here's, how about this one right here? And we need kind of a long, skinny triangle is what I need. Where's a long, skinny triangle? This one? That'll work. And I need one piece over here. I need something on this corner. I need a little something right here. That's what I mean later, just as you have spots you need something, you can easily go back and sort through your bits and find one that fits. Hey, that rhymes. Sort through your bits and find one that fits. All right. I'm overthinking it. That's a personal problem. Don't be like me. And again, the edges aren't that important because we are going to, like I said, trim it down to the size we want at the end. But I like to give myself as many trimming options as possible. So, so that if need be, I can take more from this side and less from this side. All right, that is colored. That wasn't too bad, was it? Now I'm just going to flip this over and I'm going to trim this off. And it doesn't have to be trimmed perfectly. We're just going to get rid of the biggest pieces hanging over because, like I said, I am going to trim it with my trimmer. I'll bring the trimmer back in and we'll get some nice straight edges. But to get that started, it's easier just to, plus you don't want to bump them and then have it tear off the adhesive. So I like to just trim it down close along the edge. Don't worry about it being perfect. And on the other side where you're grabbing, try to grab so you're holding on to a piece of designer paper. Keep your fingers off the adhesive as best you can. So let me clean up these pieces here, get them out of our way. And that's pretty well covered. So now I'm going to bring back my trimmer. And I want my finished size to be 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. But I'm going to start by trimming one side just a little bit so I get my straight line established. And that's why I make it, you don't want to take a lot because I only made it a 1/4 inch larger than my finished piece. You can make it your piece as big as you want. Use a 1/4 sheet, 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. But now I've got a nice straight line up here to trim this to. So I'm going to take a little bit off this side. I found I like to take a little bit off each side because that way I get a straight, clean edge on each side. So now I got 2 straight edges, and now I can measure. So what did I say? I wanted 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. So here's 3 1/2, and we will just trim this down. 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. Now these pieces are actually large enough. You could use this to decorate the inside of your card if you want, just to add a decorative strip on the side. You'll have to be careful because this edge is not necessarily trimmed well, as you can see. So it may or may not work, but it is an option. So, all right. Now the next step is we are going to cover this with embossing powder. And because, bring this up close, hopefully you can see it. The foil, there we go, I think you can see that. The foil in there is silver on here. So I am going to use silver embossing powder, and I'm just going to cover this liberally. Now you do not want to use an embossing buddy because you don't want to take the sticky away from the adhesive sheet. But If some, due to static, sticks to your designer paper, I'm going to say for the most part, it's no big deal. I did have one card that I'm going to show you a little bit different thing to do. But if you're using foiled paper and you're embossing with a coordinating foil embossing powder or a metallic, like the silver on silver, if you get flecks on there, it's no big deal because it just adds a little bit more sparkle, right? And I did like to put it on liberally. And then we're going to just tap it off. And now we are going to heat emboss this. So I should have heated up my gun. Take a minute to heat up. Apologize for the noise. I think it quiets down fairly quickly. And you'll be able to see when it starts to turn, I think. And once it starts, I'll just move it along. And it takes a little bit of time to do this, but this embossing's fun. It's like magic. As you see it turn to shiny silver. Hopefully you can see it. I can see it. It's getting a little warm over here. I'll take my finger away. And just continue to emboss this whole piece. One corner left. All right. Looks like it's done. Let me pick it up and look a little more closely. I think I missed a little spot right over here. Not quite done. So I'm going to cook that one just a bit more. There it goes. Right. I have to say, under these bright lights, you'd think it would really help, but it kind of makes it harder to see as it changes. So that is your finished technique sheet. Now you can use this and make it on a card. I am going to finish up this card. I decided to make a Misty Moonlight base, picking up on the Misty Moonlight in the designer paper. And this is a new foil that we have called brushed metallic, I believe. Let me double check what it's called. Textured metallic. And it comes in, I think, 3 colors: a copper, a gold, and this tungsten. So this tungsten is kind of a purpley silver. And I'm like, you know what? I think this works with Misty Moonlight. So that's what I decided to use. Now you might wonder, I cut out my center because I'm cheap. I should say I'm thrifty. I want to spread out the use of my metallics as much as possible because they're relatively expensive, right? So I'm just going to use, what are we going to use here? This thing kind of messed up a little bit. So let me see if I can pull this back up. Oh, tell me I'm at the end. I'll be at the end. Right in it. Oh, what do I? All right. What do I have? What do I have here? Nothing. Well, when you normally use this, I don't have my liquid glue. I don't have another snail. I am not prepared, but I have tear and tape over here in my little filming corner. So we're just going to use this. Lots of options. I feel like every time I do a video, there's something I need I don't have. Do I have dimensionals over here today? I might have those either. You might have to imagine how this card looks in the end. And use your imagination if I can't stick it all together. Oh. All right, let's get this off. I'm getting there. All right, so let's just put this on our, now I got no wiggle allowance when I use tear and tape, so. All right. Hold on. Dimensionals. I'm going to use, I'm just going to pop this off. I don't have a whole lot of dimension on this one, so we'll use dimensionals. Besides, they're easier to work with than getting those little backing pieces off the tear and tape. All right, and I have the inside done, so I have to make sure I get this where I want it. All right, and I had a couple different options I made. You don't really want to cover a lot of this up, right? So I can put this Misty Moonlight on here with a little silver ribbon. I have the white. I don't know which one. I feel like this shows more. So I'm going to put this one on here. And I'm going to keep it very simple because this background is really the star of the show. And I even cut, this is from Enjoying Little Things. And I cut out the outside and the inside with a deckled circle. Looks kind of like a donut. I know. Maybe I had donuts on my mind. But I wanted to see as much of it as I could. So I thought, well, I'm just going to open that up. So there we go. That is our card with the embossed mosaic. And on the inside, I just used a piece here of the designer series paper that we just cut up for the card front. So that is the card that I wanted to show you today. Now I have two more to show you. I showed you this one, which was my very first attempt. So you've seen that one. And I have another one that I made. I'm going to save my favorite for last, and it's got kind of a neat little twist to it. I learned something, and so I'm going to show you what I learned. But this last one I'm going to show you uses the Season of Elegance designer series paper, and this is really pretty. It's got gold foil, so I embossed with gold. And it comes in, there's a cherry cobbler real red combination of basic beige, a couple different patterns in that one. And then these are old olive and mossy meadow, I think. And this is the combination with pretty peacock and gold. And on the back, they're all non-foil, but again, I use this one. And because well, just let me show you the card, and then I'll explain why I did what I did. So here's my finished card. I wanted to make sure that my mosaic pattern, the gold embossing in there, really popped and showed up. And I was a little concerned if I used this really heavy gold patterned portion of the paper that it wouldn't show up that much. And that seemed like kind of a waste of the technique. So I used pieces up here where there's just little flecks and sparkles of gold and a few little larger blotches. So that is this card, and this is made with the Love and Strength stamp set, which is, I believe, on the last chance list, I think. I have to double check that, but I think it's on the last chance, as is in this Enjoy Little Things. For sure one of them is, because I just got them, so of course it's going to retire. Right? But I colored this with Stampin' Blends. It's embossed in gold. This stamp set, this Love and Strength, has some beautiful sentiments in it, which is why I really purchased it. And I just made my little faux bow. I don't know if I've shown you how to do my faux bows. Super easy bows. And then just decorated the inside and a little more designer paper on the flap there. So that is that card. Now the last card I want to show you, I used one of my very favorite designer series papers called Full of Life. And it is colorful and bright colors, lots of bright colors, all different kinds of patterns, polka dots and squares and color washes and ombres. And I thought it didn't have any metallic in it, and I'd only seen this technique done with metallic, and I'm like, well, what if I just tried embossing with black embossing powder? So that's what I did first. And I did it the same way as I just showed you. I cut my pieces of designer paper up, put them down on basic white cardstock with an adhesive sheet, and then embossed with black. And I want to, and because we can't use the embossing buddy, I want to try to bring this up close. And can you see how the little specks of black, pretty much, even though I took a little tiny brush and brushed every one of them off, tedious, yes, to try to get as much as off as I could, because there was a lot of black on there. So I think it looks pretty, but when you get in close, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So I thought, what if instead of using basic white cardstock, I just used black cardstock and then embossed with clear. So that's what I did on my final card. And I'm going to hold these two side by side, because I think you will be able to see the difference in the brightness of the paper, because it doesn't have that black dust on it. It probably has clear embossing powder on it, but it didn't make it look like this dirty, dusty paper. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. If you have a paper and you want to use a different color embossing powder, but you don't want your designer paper to have all those little embossed specks on there, use colored cardstock for your backing and just emboss with clear. Whatever color, maybe you want red embossing, and you don't have red embossing powder. Use a real red cardstock or cherry color cardstock and just emboss with clear. It still is shiny and bright and eye-catching. So honestly, I think this might be my favorite card. But those are the cards I wanted to show you. I'd love to know what you think. Let's flip the camera back over here and wrap this up. So thank you. I'm excited you watched. I hope you like the cards. I'd love to know which one is your favorite. And if if you've learned something or found this helpful to remind you of something you had forgotten about, you give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. If you're not one of my regular followers, I'd love to have you subscribe. And please share it with your friends, because the more people that we teach and learn with us, the more fun it is, right? So have a great day, folks. And I should say, relative to tutorials, I can put a link. I will put a link down below to, how about I put a link to, I'm going to put one for the most common technique, which is the metallic embossing. So I will put a link to this one. The others will probably show up on my fearlessstampandflair.com blog within the next couple weeks. So keep an eye out for that if you want a tutorial for the others. Honestly, once you have one of the tutorials, you can figure out the rest of them. It's not that big a deal. It's pretty much all the same. Sizes might vary a smidgen, but again, that doesn't matter. The main thing is the technique, right? That's what we're here for. So have a great day. Have a great weekend. And I will see you next week with something else. Have a great one. Bye-bye.